Welcome the director, Jeremy Chilnick, and producer, Tony Castle.
Hi.
Hello.
Say, fabulous film, just a fabulous film, and a very harrowing one as well. We always start with, how did you come onto the story?
So, actually, and just as we're here to start with, two people who aren't here is actually my co-director, Slava Rakovsky, who's also the incredible director of photography of this film, and our other Ukrainian producer, Elena Morostova. I came onto this film, originally I was shooting a couple of pilots in Kyiv before the war started, which is where I met Slava. And we had this plan to do this movie. We were getting it ready to go in a couple months, and then Russia invades. Slava was of an age where he can't leave the country. We're all feeling helpless, especially when you have really good friends there, and Elena had become a really good friend at that point. And I said, Slava, I was like, if you find a story, let me know, and I got really good partners here in the US in Tony Castle, and we'll figure out how to make it. And so a couple months goes by, and he calls me up and he's like, always calls me boss, not that I am his boss, it's just more of a word to fill in for many other words that he doesn't always have in English. And he's like, boss, I have this story. And so Tony and I read it, and I'm like, I don't think this story is actually real. Like, I don't think it's true, because when you actually hear it of like how just improbable and magical is, it's one of those things where unless you actually saw it, you wouldn't believe it. So Slava went out there and we started filming, and that's pretty much took about 16 months, I think, to shoot. And we were editing simultaneously, and that was pretty much the genesis of it.
But Jeremy didn't come to me with the story. He came to me and said, these goats are stars. And I was like, what? And then when I saw the goats, I was like, oh, these goats are stars.
It is true. I do believe they are the most telegenic
right.
goats ever committed to film. I have said that.
So at the point when you started filming, or when he started filming, and then you got on board and said, okay, let's do this thing, at what point was the farm at that point? How many animals had come already, and how fast was it growing?
I think about that point it was about 500 animals, give or take, and it kind of always expands and it contracts, and with how, and it's still going on right now in terms of the process. More refugees, unfortunately, continue to have to flee the war zone, so they now know that the farm is a place where they can leave animals, they can't take them. The soldiers continually find animals that are, wandering around barns that have been blown out through fighting, so it expands. At one point when we were shooting, I think it got to about 1,200. Which was pretty wild, and I think it ends up with about close to 800 or 900 now still.
And they do find other homes and other places for the animals, because there are only so much that they can take on. So
right.
they're working around the clock to sort of find a home for their animals if that home isn't the Green Grove.
Okay, but in terms of storytelling, you go from the beginning of, we were going to build a summer house, and it was going to be like this and like that, and then we got the story of how the first 37 goats arrived and so forth. So, but at that point, they'd already arrived. Everything had already happened. So how did you go about filming that beginning of the story?
It's an excellent question. I'm still wrapping my head around how we actually pulled it off. So and this is a little bit of movie magic. Ultimately, it's really about figuring out how to get Anatoly and Jania to tell their story with enough visuals to slowly bring us up to the point where time catches up with us in the film, which is after the title card, and then we're in real time and we're going forward. But we had an incredible editor on this. His name's Joe Vele, who did an incredible job on this. And it's really just finding the right bites, but
and we were lucky that they took so many iPhone videos. I mean, the movie, Slava did such a beautiful job. It's widescreen, it's cinematic, it's beautiful, but we do cut to tall screen iPhone footage because they captured so much of that, and we didn't want to leave that out of the movie because they have the footage of those early days, those first, animals coming out of the cars. That was so captivating to us. So we wanted to include that, even though it's not shot in, 4K CinemaScope.
Yeah, but you have a lot of real-time footage going on at the same time. So they had already built some of the farm structures by the time you arrived. It wasn't just a summer house anymore.
Just very few. So, because half of it did really just get, got unfortunately destroyed on the first night of the war. But they had been starting, and they had been slowly building in. We all kind of have self-documentation devices that we carry around with us, so we were able to utilize those.
Well, it's just incredible. And then in terms of the storytelling, that jumping back and forth from the news accounts of as the invasion comes forward and the real-time events as the dam breaks and the flooding and so forth, and the way that you cut back and forth to those, that was in the editing room. You went to get more footage from the front. I mean, there's a lot of different things going on there.
So, pretty much the idea behind, I guess, call it a storytelling device, is a lot of that came out of conversations that Slav and I would actually have, and throughout the entire process, particularly when I'm in New York, Slava would call me in the middle of the night his time, and he's calling me from his bathroom, because that's what the bomb shelter is if you don't have enough time to get underground. He's calling, and he's got his wife and his kid, and they're like in their bathtub, and they're waiting for the missiles to finish either being intercepted, or for the air raid to go off, and we start talking about how the movie's going and what we're going to shoot next. There's it really was like that. But I always felt that there was a very interesting dynamic between how we feel the war over here, and we feel the war really predominantly through sound bites. We hear it if we pick up the news, if you're looking on social media, but you get it in 10, 30-second, bites, and they're living it all the time. So we wanted to try to create that dichotomy of the way that we feel the war juxtaposed against living with it all the time.
Well, and I think did a magnificent job of that. I think that in terms of overall storytelling, humanizing the war for us, and in this particular lens of what they're doing for the animals, but incredibly articulate people you had to deal with in Anatolia and Genya. So that's a huge help, obviously.
Yes, very much so. They were fantastic.
And the two of them and all the people that worked with them and the people that were just helping rescue animals during the flood and other things like that, just juxtaposed against the most shameful, horrifying human behavior towards other humans, and then what they're doing just gives us a little bit of a ray of hope, and the constant juxtaposition is kind of amazing. But the odds they're up against, I'm probably not alone in here in wondering, is there a way that we can support them and help them?
Yeah, actually. So we have some postcards out front that you can grab that has a QR code. And that brings you to a website. That's our website that you can donate. We have a fiscal sponsor, so it is a nonprofit donation. And we are taking those proceeds and giving those to the Green Grove. And in New York, we also have a local New York animal sanctuary. So we're doing a 50-50 split, where 50% of the proceeds go to a local animal sanctuary. It's called the Woodstock Animal Sanctuary, and the other 50% goes to Green Grove. And as we screen the film in other cities, we look to partner with other local animal sanctuaries. So people are supporting both Green Grove and a local animal sanctuary.
Which is a beautiful thing in its own right. I'm kind of amazed that you got a lot of producing partners on this. So did that start early? I mean, I saw Kira Sedgwick's name. I saw some other names. And at the front of the film, we saw some producing partners there. So how did you line those all up?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think, honestly, the footage that Slava was able to capture was so captivating. And we never had all the money ever. We still don't. So it was always a work in progress, and it was a little stop and start, but we never wanted to miss anything. And to Slava's credit, we never missed anything. There's nothing that happened, and Slava doesn't live near Anatolia and Xenia. He has to travel a few hours by car with his team to get out there and film it. There was nothing that we felt like, oh, they did this thing, and man, I wish we could have filmed that. We didn't have money at that time. He always made it work, and then we went and found the money, and it kind of really drove us to find producing partners to make sure that we were supporting him out there, because as Jeremy said, like, it's a lot more than just making a movie. It's surviving.
Well, the precarity of making the film and financing it as balanced against the precarity that they're experiencing. And she said at one point, we've applied for a bunch of grants, but we need this number, and we've applied for another. So beyond the Canadian delegation, were there other grants coming through? Have other grants come through?
For the farm, yes. They continue to get a few other grants, but the reality is it's incredibly hard. They're incredibly overtaxed. They're under-resourced, overtaxed. They've been pretty successful recently with helping to kind of get more of a help get with this story, what the farm has been doing out, kind of through social media channels. But they're up against they're climbing a really steep hill.
Yeah, I would say. And in terms of storytelling, again, back to directing, the Marmulia, the
Mamulia.
Okay, so
Yeah.
I mean, was that a decision, or did you pick different animals besides Marmulia to follow their evolution, their development, and their healing, or whatever?
Well, actually, it's from the beginning. There's always kind of this question of, at some point, just from the visual language you use, from just how you react to them, 800 animals, 1,000 animals, 1,200 animals, it all kind of looks the same at some point. So when Mamulia kind of came into the story, and it's very tragic and very graphic, and luckily has like a really happy ending for it. We realized that kind of could be the avatar for all of the other animals, that we could follow throughout there. So unlucky for Mamulia, unfortunately, because of her paw. Lucky for us as filmmakers, because it gave us such a really wonderful through arc to be able to follow.
But every time Jeremy called me, I was like, oh, Mamulia's dead. And I'd pick up the phone and, no, she's still alive. And you guys are actually the first ones to see this version of the film with that clip at the end with her new baby foal. We screened this at Woodstock. And I think we got that news like the day of the screening. So we got to give that information as a part of the Q&A that she had a new baby. But we didn't know that until literally the day of the premiere at Woodstock. So you guys are the first audience to see it with that new clip, which is just like so adorable. Wow. So this is a world premiere.
It's really adorable, but it also raises the question of Mamulia getting busy while healing, right?
Jania says where she's looking at the donkeys off and acting crazy and goes, look, Mamulia's off over there just by herself. It turns out she was not by herself.
Not so much by herself. Where's Dad? Yeah. So I think we got a little bit more time, and I know there's going to be questions from the audience, so please raise your hand. Oh, we're over here. Do we have a microphone, please?
Since Russia has continued to bomb, how has the farm survived, since you finished filming for this movie? Because we could see it getting closer and closer.
Sure.
It's rough right now. I mean, if you're following the news a lot of what they talk about with the current Russian advances is actually getting very, very close to the farm, and that kind of regions of the Donetsk is what the farm is on the edge of. And, they're incredibly proud, and I think they would fight if they could. They do talk about if they did have to evacuate, what would they do, and could they move the animals? And they are talking to some people about that. I'm hoping we don't have to make a sequel though, and I'm hoping that peace can prevail. But it's really scary, and they do really live with it every single day. I think there's a line in the movie where they feel they have anywhere from as much as 4 hours to as little as an hour to really be able to really get out if there's like an actual like breakthrough. So it's terrifying.
Oh, well, and that's a part of the film. I mean, it's kind of built in, but the sort of level of suspense, everything's hanging by a thread at all times, and the incredible spirit that Anatoly has and Zhenya of the idea of, I would fight if I could, but they're rescuing people, we're rescuing animals, it doesn't make any difference. The mission is to rescue, and they're certainly living that. And his idea of no turning back, you see him up against impossible odds and everything else, and he says no turning back, and then they're able to celebrate when they can finally pull it all together. So just an amazing job of storytelling.
Thank you.
We have another question right here. Hang on, just wait for the microphone, please.
I'm curious as to what point you decided to bring in the narration.
Yeah, sure. I think there were we had a cut of the movie. We always knew that like a celebrity executive producer like Kira Sedgwick, who did the voiceover, would help propel the film. And there was just a few elements, like some of the nuance that you're bringing up with how did this start? The money is always a question. So the Canadian delegation were scenes that were like, how do we explain this? And so we scripted some voiceover in, and we tried to keep it really minimal, but it helped for us sort of do a little bit of hand-holding with some of those things that you want to understand so that you can go on and like really live with Xenia and Anatoly once you understand that information.
Well, and also the development as the Russian forces advance, to have that graphic and to have the voiceover for that and to have the news accounts and other things that happen. I mean, it does hold the story together. I think it's really beautiful. And we have another question? Okay, so I think that I just want to say one other thing, that the continuing suspense of things like, and where you didn't need the narration, is in terms of them talking about, okay, what are we going to do for Mamuya, and what's it going to cost, and how are we going to come up with the money, and then we don't see them asking for the money or anything else. We see the donations come in, and we see the different things, and the different real-time issues of getting a donkey to.
I tried to convince Jeremy to have the narration be from Mamoulia's point of view, but he didn't like that idea. But that was my suggestion.
Well,
And yet today, I still wonder if it was a mistake not to do it.
Yeah, maybe we messed up.
Well, and the sort of the weird pop cultural references that Anatoly's coming up with. He's calling it the Battle of the Orcs, and then
Yeah, but also the fact that they have a sense of humor was so great, and such a
Totally.
great credit to our editor and Jeremy sitting in the edit room to find those moments of levity. Really makes it so fun.
Well, and the humanity of their fight over
Yeah.
who's going to go, when they're going to go, and they're laughing about it. And how did I wind up with a husband like you? And how did that all happen? But that again goes to humanizing the whole story, which is
thanks.
what we really needed, what we all need to have to be able to see, whether it's Ukraine or Gaza, anywhere else, to see the human face of these stories, so that we can have what is so much lacking, which is the empathy that we all need. And so thank you so much for bringing that to us.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate it. Thank
all.
you for coming, and grab a postcard if you want to learn more
By
about
all
Green
means,
Grove.
get a postcard and make donations, and let's help these people out.
Cool.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.